Think I'm getting a full song. Well, I did it. Okay, I did it. Oh yes, this right here. The entire story. We already did regular show. We did Adventure Time, and we did Amazing World of Gumball. So that's the big three in Cartoon Network. Time to go come on over to Disney XD. To me personally, top three cartoon of all time. Big old Gravity Falls.
As being one of the creepiest, most adventurous. Gravity Falls will go down in Disney cartoon history as being one of the creepiest, most adventurous journeys yet. It's iconic and easily cemented itself as not just one of the best Disney Channel cartoons ever, but even one of the greatest cartoons of all time. And to top it all off, it's hilarious to boot, with amazing voice actors, including Kristen Schaal, who famously voices Louise from Bob's Burgers. Fun fact, had to say it at some point. But enough said, let's jump into it.
Hey.
For a little bit of context, let's take a look at our main characters. Dipper and Mabel Pines are two twins who are traveling to visit their Grunkle Stan over the summer. Grunkle is great, or maybe Grunkle. Sounds like a basic.
That see you next summer never came into fruition, bro. On the last episode, that shit said, see you next summer. Nigga, it's been 8 years. It's been 8 years, okay?
Calm vacation, one might say.
I was 11 when this show
Upon
ended.
arrival, the
20.
twins quickly realize that the Mystery Shack, Grunkle Stan's house of bewilderment and unnatural oddities, is nothing but a sham of a tourist attraction. But there are real, numerous strange occurrences happening throughout the small town of Gravity Falls, Oregon. Some other familiar faces you'll be seeing around the mysterious town are Soos, an employee for the Mystery Shack and one of Mabel and Dipper's best friends. He isn't the brightest, but he is a true friend. It's important to note that since he and Wendy both work for the
more I look at Soos, from the angle that I just seen him, man, he look like old Dashy. I don't know who Dashy Games is, bro.
seeing around the mysterious town are
He definitely look like old Dashy.
Mystery Shack and one of Mabel and Dipper's.
Like the hat, the skin tone, the facial structure is there. Not look. Props to my boy Dashy for everything, bro. Dashy, you like one of the main reasons I want to create content, bro. I love my boy Dashy. You know what I'm saying? I loved him when he was chubby. I loved him when he was skinny. I loved him when he was making skits. I loved him when he was cooking with Dashy, playing games. When he first started playing games back in 2014. You know what I'm saying? Trying to transfer it from Dashy XP. Soos looks a little bit like old Dashy. Okay, just a little bit.
Best friends. He isn't the brightest, but he is a true friend. It's important to note
Like
that
right
since
there,
he
you
and
can't
Wendy
tell
both
me,
work
he
for the
gone.
Mystery Shack, they seem to be besties and are seen talking to each other on the phone consistently throughout the show. Love to see it. Wendy, Dipper's main crush and a vital character throughout. She's part of a family of lumberjacks and is overall more of a tomboy. She can be seen hanging around with the twins, at the shack, or cruising around town with a group of friends. Or, unfortunately for Dipper, with her boyfriend Robbie, who you'll learn about in due time. The first episode begins with the twins being introduced to the sleepy town of Gravity Falls. If only they knew how far this would be from the truth. After being assigned by Grunkle Stan to nail up signs in the woods, Dipper stumbles upon a strange electronic stump of a tree. Inside the stump, a trapdoor opens, which reveals a control panel, and after some fiddling, another trapdoor opens from the ground. Inside lies a strange book. Inside the book are journal entries of what appear to be folklore creatures. Dipper, as anyone would, takes the book to further research later. Meanwhile, Mabel busies herself with her new boyfriend, Norman. Dipper instantly becomes suspicious of Norman as he isn't able to hold good conversations, and he also harbors a strange appearance. Dipper confronts Mabel, claiming that he believes Norman to be a zombie, as he resembles the characteristics described in his new secret book. Okay, Dipper, just because someone has social anxiety, it doesn't automatically make them a zombie. Mabel thinks Dipper is being silly, until she finds herself tied up in the middle of the woods, surrounded by a bunch of gnomes? So maybe people with social anxiety are a pile of gnomes, not zombies. Jeff, the leader of the
I know a couple gnomes.
explains to Mabel that Norman was actually just him standing on top of a couple of other gnomes.
Is this weird? Is this too weird? You need to sit down.
They needed her to become their gnome queen, which is why she is now being tied up until she gives in. Dipper realizes that Mabel is missing and was said to be out in the woods with Norman. He instantly becomes worried that she is going to be eaten by Norman, completely misconstrued in regards to what's actually going on.
Kissing practice!
After borrowing Wendy's golf cart, Dipper races into the woods. Once he arrives, he is rightfully extremely confused, but quickly catches on to what's happening. And while in the book, the gnomes are highlighted as not having any weaknesses, this doesn't stop Dipper from slapping them away with his shovel and rescuing Mabel from their trap. As the twins race away, the gnomes form into one giant monster and chase the two into town. The twins eventually crash the mystery cart and are presumably trapped. Mabel creates a plan, however, and asks Dipper to trust her. She then yells to Jeff that she will agree to marry him. Once he comes down, he quickly accepts. Mabel then sucks him up into her leaf blower and shoots him at the giant gnome monster. She then uses that same leaf blower to start blowing the other gnomes back into the woods. After all that chaos, Grunkle Stan, who has been completely oblivious to this entire situation,
Behold, the world's most distracting object.
offers the kids to choose anything from the mystery shack for them to keep. Dipper then chooses his iconic pine hat that he will be seen wearing the entire rest of the show.
Dang,
Mabel
how long?
chooses
We at 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Okay, he had a hat on. Okay, I was just about to say he didn't have a hat on this whole episode, but he did. It just wasn't the pine cone tree.
the grappling hook.
Whatcha! Ah!
At the very end of the episode, Grunkle Stan is seen entering a secret passageway that is located within a vending machine. He closes the door quickly behind him after looking around to make sure nobody saw what he had just done. This leaves the audience from the first episode wondering, what strange activities does Grunkle Stan do in said secret room? Does he know anything about the strange phenomena within Gravity Falls?
He
Does he
definitely
have
knows.
anything to do with that secret journal Dipper found in the woods?
Yep.
And why is he wearing that funny fez all the time? Let's keep digging together. This episode begins with Dipper, Mabel, and Seuss watching TV together when a commercial showing little Gideon, who is supposedly a psychic, pops on. Now, I want us all to look at this little freak, this absolute abomination of a human being, this weasel of a soul. Okay, anyways, moving on. The three are curious and want to go see one of his shows in person, but Grunkle Stan refuses, but he has beef with Gideon's family. The other three go anyway, and while Mabel and Seuss are impressed, Dipper sees that Gideon is clearly a fraud, and blatantly announces that he doesn't like him. Same. I mean, what? The next day, Gideon
Nobody
shows
likes
up to the
Gideon,
Mystery
okay.
Shack and offers to do a makeover with Mabel, to which she happily accepts. He also ends up asking her on a date, to which Mabel assumes he means a shopping date or something girly of that sort. Dipper warns her that he still doesn't have a good feeling about him, but she complains that she never is able to do anything girly, so she goes anyway. However, she quickly realizes that it isn't the girly date she had in mind.
So close. Look, Gideon.
So decides that she will only be going on one with him. Towards the end of the date, Gideon insinuates that they will be going on another. Mabel declines this offer because she only wanted to go on one date, but is pressured into it after Grunkle Stan says that it will be a good business opportunity if Gideon's family company and his merge together. Dipper, who tries to protect his little sister from this weird arranged marriage type relationship, tells Gideon that Mabel doesn't want to date him
Man, that was
and that he needs
episode
to
4?
back off. Gideon, enraged
This
by
show
this,
kicked it off
attacks
real
Dipper
quick
with the
then.
mysterious amulet and tells him to stay away from the secrets of Gravity Falls. After Gideon attacks Dipper with the amulet, Mabel arrives, ready to break up with him. Seeing the battle, she quickly steals the amulet from Gideon and uses it to stop the fight. She yells that she will never date him, and for him to just leave them alone. Gideon leaves, but is seen at home mumbling about revenge while reading another secret journal. This one has the number 2 on it, while Dipper's has a number 3. This won't be the end of little old me.
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna need that painting back. Stan! Try and catch me, suckers!
This later episode, the inconveniencing, isn't that important. Although we do meet Wendy's gang of friends, and we get a deeper look into just how much Dipper likes Wendy, and dislikes Robbie, since he and Wendy have an on-again, off-again relationship. Also, yeah, Robbie's an emo jerk, so there's your info on him. Last bit of important info, look at Dipper's little dance.
Who wants a lammy, lammy, lammy? I do.
Iconic. In the episode Irrational Treasure,
Yeah, no.
it's Founders Day in Gravity Falls, and things aren't going the best. Pacifica Northwest, a mean girl at school and Mabel's main enemy throughout the show, is the granddaughter of the town's founder, and she's a
Not gonna lie, we didn't like Pacifica in the beginning, but we turned around and started fucking with Pacifica just a little bit. Just a little bit.
stuck-up little rat girl. During a town speech, Pacifica asks if there's anybody who would like to say any words, to which Mabel asks to say something. Pacifica makes fun of Mabel and says that silly girls like her can't possibly talk in front of a crowd. Mabel, who is normally able to shrug off rude comments like this, is surprisingly deeply affected and vows to be more serious from now on.
Whoops! I dropped another one.
Meanwhile, Dipper remembers that in his journal, he read an entry that said the town founder might be a hoax, and that there's a real founder nobody talks about. Mabel decides she wants to help Dipper solve the mystery, as only mature people would be able to do so. The town deputies overhear the kids' plans, however, and start acting suspicious. The twins follow the clues written in the journal. Mabel, coincidentally not trying to be silly anymore, is the only person who is able to figure out the clues, as they all require her silly antics. She turns the map into a hat, which reveals the way to go. She turns things upside down, which also reveals clues. She even pretends to have a statue pick her nose, which reveals the secret entryway that they were looking for. Once inside the passage, they find secret documents revealing that the real town founder is none other than this guy, Quentin Tremblay. Just as that historical bombshell is dropped, the sheriffs reveal themselves and explain that they now have to take the twins to Washington, D.C., along with Tremblay, who is encased in peanut brittle since he believed it to have life-preserving properties. Also, the sheriffs were tasked to secretly try to find the founder, as he was actually the 8th president of the United States. And since the twins found out about the secret, they are forced to be sent, as well as all the evidence. 8.5 president? I have so many questions. During their train ride, Mabel eats a piece of the brittle in defeat, which breaks apart the encasing, causing Tremblay to escape. He orders the sheriffs to let them go and to go on a nice long vacation.
I hereby order you to pretend none of this ever happened and go on a delightful vacation.
Since he is still technically the mayor and founder of the town that they live in, the sheriffs happily oblige, since they don't want to work, and release them all. Once back in town, Dipper rubs it in Pacifica's face that her family is worthless and that she's been a fraud this whole time. Meanwhile, Mabel accepts her silliness, as she is the reason the real founder was found, and Mr. Tremblay hands Dipper a negative $12 bill before riding off into the sunset. Backwards. What?
This is worthless.
It's less than worthless, my boy.
In the episode The Time Traveler's Pig,
Man, that was
a pretty
first
important
season?
character is introduced. It begins with
Jesus.
Dipper wanting to impress Wendy at the mystery fair by winning her
That
a stuffed
episode was
animal.
played a lot. That episode was played a lot, aired a lot. So that's probably why I'm thinking like, dang, for real? It was early seasons. That's probably why it was played a lot.
Well, she was gushing about. When Dipper attempts to win the game, he tosses a ball that ends up ricocheting and hitting Wendy in the face, causing a black eye. Dipper runs off to get ice, but slams into this dude, Blendon Blandon, a weird bald dude in a gray jumpsuit. Because Dipper ran into Blendon, he didn't get back to Wendy in time to help her, and was horrified to find Robbie comforting her instead. Meanwhile, Mabel wins a pet pig and names him Waddles. This is the important
Wow.
character I mentioned earlier. Totally not Blendon. Dipper blames Blendon on the whole Wendy situation.
Are you from the future or something?
No! Who told you that? Memory wipe!
And after finding out that he's a time traveler sent to that day specifically to fix the time continuums that were messed up, Dipper asks to borrow his time machine in order to fix what he has ruined. Blandon refuses though, claiming the device is much too difficult for them to use or even understand. Mabel offers free tickets to the fair to Blendon, as he seems to be super stressed out because of his job, and so he happily accepts them. Dipper then steals the machine while Blendon is distracted on rides, and uses the machine to go back in time several times to try and fix the situation. However, the situation never seems to change, until Dipper asks Mabel's help, which requires her to miss out on winning Waddles. Distraught, Mabel becomes depressed, and Dipper claims that she'll get over it eventually. They fight over the time machine and travel through multiple different time frames, but it becomes more clear that she will, in fact, not get over it.
And if you look to your left, you'll see miserable Mabel, the girl who went bonkers after her dreams were shattered by some heartless jerk.
Dipper, being a good brother, decides to allow the original timeline to take place so that she can have Waddles, even though he won't be able to woo Wendy. Blendon realizes what they have done and quickly takes back the time machine, but it's too late. The Time Paradox Avoidance Enforcement Squadron shows up and arrests him for violating the Time Traveler's Code of Conduct.
I'll go back in time and make sure your parents never meet!
Good old Blendon is then seen being punished by Time Baby, who orders him to clean up the time anomalies caused by Dipper and Mabel. He is then seen in the first 3 episodes in the background doing just this. Also, little note, if you go back to...
for real? I never noticed that he was in the background. What?
Your parents never meet!
Good old Blendon is then seen being punished by Time Baby, who orders him to clean up the time anomalies caused by Dipper and Mabel. He is then seen in the first 3 episodes in the background doing just this.
Damn, I never noticed
Also,
that.
little note,
I never
if you go
noticed
back to those episodes, you actually can see him in the background. Nice attention to detail, animators. The episode, The Deep End, is honestly not too important to the lore. At least not enough for me to talk about. But look how silly Mabel's boyfriend is. He's a literal merman. Also, Sue starts the inflatable duck revolution. Yep, that is a sentence in this script. The beginning of the 2-part Season 1 finale, titled Dreamscapers, starts with Dipper, Mabel, Seuss, and Grunkle Stan finding out through one of Gideon's commercials that he plans on taking over the Mystery Shack and turning it into the Tent of Telepathy. However, Stan reassures the group that the only way Gideon could ever take over is if he somehow unlocks Stan's secret safe.
The only way Gideon's taking over the shack is by breaking in and stealing my deed.
The combination of which is only located inside of his mind, which is definitely someplace Gideon could never get into. Gideon, overhearing this, uses his secret number 2 journal to summon Bill Cipher, a dream demon capable of getting into Stan's mind. Who could have seen that one coming? Bill is a cunning little yellow triangle guy who wears a top hat, and vaguely resembles the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati. He's pretty important to the lore, and is even visible for a few frames at the end of the show's intro. You'll find out just how important soon.
Very
but for now,
important,
let's
bro.
get back to him and Gideon.
They
The only reason
purposely-
Bill agrees to their
They purposely designed him as the Illuminati eye for a reason. Damn, he knows all. He sees all. Damn. How convenient. Let me stop before they knock on my fucking door.
plan is if
They knock on my goddamn door, bro. I'm just a civilian, bro. I'm just a regular nigga. Y'all seen the folks that be trying to draft? Like, you automatically enrolled into draft now? Boy, what? But let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. If a nigga come knocking on my door, talking about something, we about to go to war. We need your son. We could train him and he'll be back home. I'ma look him in his eyes. I'm not going to war, nigga. I serve crack before I serve this country. Yes, it's typical for my skin color to do that anyways. Fuck yeah. I will be Franklin Saint before I ever be Arnold Schwarzenegger, okay? I will be Franklin Saint before I'm an American Dream, alright? There is no American Dream. The American Dream was sold out 40 years ago. The American Dream been sold out. American Dream existed when a nigga wasn't even in the nutsack yet. Father couldn't even produce nut yet.
if Gideon agrees to help him with a favor sometime in the future, and thus, hands are shaken. Mabel and Sue see this exchange and warn Dipper, and after confiding in the book for answers, they find that they might be able to stop Bill from disturbing Stan if they enter his mind as well. Once inside his mind, they quickly realize that they can make whatever they dream of come to life and begin fighting off Bill.
You're the 2 best Colombian prison friends a fella could make. Espero que muera.
Bill stops the fight, being almost all-powerful, but lets them live, claiming that the trio is clever and that they might come in handy later on. Before leaving Stan's mind, Bill warns the children of an upcoming evil that is rapidly approaching, and that everything that they have come to love will soon change. Stan then wakes up, which causes the trio to be kicked out of his brain, and once awakened, realize Gideon used dynamite to blast open the safe and gain access to the deed of the shack, successfully taking it over. That's not good.
Broom!
Oh no, not the broom!
In part 2 of the season finale, titled Gideon Rises, the gang is forced to move into Seuss's grandparents' house after being kicked out of the Mystery Shack.
Mabel, quit being creepy.
The news is then shown with Gideon telling everyone to show up for the grand closing of the Mystery Shack, claiming he has very special plans for the future. During his big speech at the grand closing, he reveals that he has Waddles, who he claims to be the new mascot of an amusement park he plans on building to replace the Mystery Shack. This enraged Mabel, causing her and the gang to all run up onto the stage. They try to convince the people of Gravity Falls that Gideon is a fraud and that he actually stole the deed to the shack. But nobody, not even the sheriffs, believe them. Wendy approaches Dipper and tells him that since she no longer has a job, she will have to work at her family's lumberjack company and move away. This upsets Dipper even more. The show then cuts to Gideon reading in his journal. He explains to his dad that he believes that there are multiple other books, and that if all of them are put together, they hold unimaginable power. He believes the book to be located somewhere on the shack's property, which is the real reason why he wanted to take it over. What a twist!
Uncle Stan, can we order pizza?
Stan approaches the twins and tells them that without his shack, he can't take care of them, as they have no permanent place to live. Dipper and Mabel don't want to give up that easily, but after Gideon steals Dipper's number 3 book, he loses hope and decides to give up. Mabel is upset with them, but the twins, seemingly with no other options, head to the bus stop to go home. Gideon then realizes that the book he took from Dipper has the number 3 on it. He wasn't aware that there were more than 2, and he automatically assumes that Dipper has the first book as well and tricked him. Naturally, Gideon then enters a robotic suit that was being made for him and proceeds to run to catch up to the bus with the twins on it. 'Cause don't we all have a giant mech of ourselves? Wish. The twins are cornered, and Gideon takes Mabel and claims he will rule Gravity Falls with her as his queen. Dipper reasonably gets pissed, and then proceeds to beat the crap out of Gideon. Good brother moment part 2. Grunkle Stan then reveals to the whole town that inside the pins that Gideon had given everyone during the grand closing ceremony were actually hidden secret cameras, which spied on the town residents to help Gideon with his psychic charades.
That's it! I know Gideon's weakness!
Would Mr. Pines like it?
Gideon is then arrested for conspiracy, fraud, and breaking all their hearts. Oh, and before he is taken away, Stan secretly steals book number 2 alongside the deed. After gaining the Mystery Shack back, the twins finally decide to tell Stan about their secret journal number 3, to which he bursts out laughing. Stan borrows the book, saying that the thing has loads of potential for future attractions at the shack, and then walks off. The episode then ends with Stan entering his secret door in the vending machine, shown in episode 1, and going down an elevator. When entering the mysterious secret room, it is shown that Stan has in his possession the first book. What? He then puts them all together, revealing some sort of blueprint to a massive machine and the access code for it. With the machine itself in the room in front of him, Stan enters the code, and it revs up, leaving the viewers waiting until the second season for any form of explanation as to just what the heck is going on. Following the season finale of season 1, the episode Scarioki begins with Stan starting up his secret machine. When it turns on, it emits a large power surge that is strong enough to be picked up from government radar, causing 2 federal agents to travel to Gravity Falls to investigate the strange phenomena. The next morning is the grand reopening of the Mystery Shack. Dipper asks Grunkle Stan for his journal back, to which Stan happily obliges. He made copies of the book, so there's no need for the real copy anymore. All is well within the family until the government agents show up, who explain that they're looking for the strange phenomena that started the surge. Dipper is extremely happy to finally have some help with investigating Gravity Falls. One of the agents gives Dipper his card, but it is quickly taken away as Stan doesn't want anybody investigating or finding out what he's secretly doing. Dipper, now upset that he doesn't have access to the agents, rants to Wendy, and she devises a plan for him to just sneak into Stan's room to retrieve the card. Dipper, now inside Stan's room calling the agents, is able to set up a meeting, but is found out by Stan, who kicks him out. When Dipper meets up with the agents, he shows them the book, but they are less impressed with most of the entries since they sound so incredibly fake. And I mean, I can't blame them. Look at these gnomes. Dipper, now frustrated, recites a passage to summon zombies. A great plan. While this works, and the agents are shocked to see a real-life zombie in front of them, more zombies quickly start to appear, and a full-blown zombie apocalypse commences. Soos gets bitten, typical, leaving Mabel, Dipper, and Waddles attempting to barricade themselves in the mystery shack. Just before all seems lost, Stan shows up and helps the kids, prompting them to go to the attic while he fights off zombies with his bat. He then tells the children that he has always known about the paranormal phenomena within Gravity Falls, but he chose to ignore this and deny it in hopes he would keep the two safe. Dipper stands over a blacklight while shuffling through the book, and Mabel realizes that the author must have started writing in invisible ink, as there are passages written that can only be seen when standing over the blacklight. Dipper reads that the only way to defeat the zombies is through singing a three-person harmony. Mabel is delighted by this fact because it means that Dipper, Stan, and herself are forced to sing a song together in order to save the day.
Girls do what we like.
Stan allows Dipper to keep the journal, but only for self-defense purposes, which Dipper is relieved to hear and excited, because he essentially now has a whole new journal to uncover thanks to that invisible ink. Meanwhile, the agents are seen emerging from the woods, gushing about how Gravity Falls is just the place they've been searching for.
Words.
Cut it out!
Sorry, dude.
The episode Into the Bunker begins with Dipper inviting Wendy to hang out with him and Mabel, after failing to tell her his real feelings yet again.
Friends.
Dude, you're laying on my bra.
Once all together, Dipper, Mabel, Wendy, and Soos find a secret passage that is allegedly, according to the new secret invisible writing found in the book, the entrance to the bunker in which the author lives in. Once deep in the tunnel, Mabel finds a love letter that Dipper wrote to Wendy. She then forces Dipper and Wendy into a closet and tells him that she'll only release them once he confesses his feelings. Unfortunately, Dipper and Wendy quickly discover a strange monster, but Mabel, thinking that they are just trying to trick her, doesn't let them out. However, that monster actually appears to be a normal human being, who claims to be the author of the book.
He is not the
Meanwhile,
author, by
Mabel
the
and
way.
Soos find documents about a failed shape-shifting experiment. Mabel is horrified to think that her brother was indeed not lying when he said there was a monster, and the two quickly go to try and save their friends. Dipper and Wendy follow the supposed author deeper into the bunker, becoming extremely suspicious as the human looks just like the picture they found on a can of beans. The author then reveals himself as a shapeshifter, big surprise, I know, and explains that the only reason he wanted access to Dipper's book was to learn how to mimic different creatures found in Gravity Falls better. Wendy attacks and Dipper retrieves his journal, and the two then run away together.
Reveal yourself, you single-formed human weakling!
After running into Soos and Mabel, all four of them begin fighting the shapeshifter. At one point, it seems that Wendy was knocked out, causing Dipper, thinking that Wendy is seriously injured, to confess that he's always loved her.
I'm like in love with you, Wendy.
However, it turns out that the Wendy he was crying over was just the shapeshifter in disguise, with real Wendy overhearing everything. The two Wendys fight, and Dipper goes in to help, but obviously gets a bit confused on who's real and who's not. However, he quickly finds out who the real Wendy is, allowing him to stab the shapeshifter in the chest, ultimately leading to its painful death. Once out of the bunker, Wendy talks to Dipper about his crush on her. She lets him down easy by explaining that she's just too old for him, but that they will remain super good friends. The episode ends
I
with
thought that
Soos
she was
realizing
too
that
old.
he found an old computer and that he'll be able to have it fixed up in just a few days. Following closely from the events in the last episode leads us to Sock Opera. It begins with Dipper trying his best to figure out the password to the computer that Soos fixed up. He asks Mabel to help him, and she initially agrees, until she gets too caught up with her new boy toy. Mabel instantly becomes obsessed with the puppeteer of the town. Oh, alrighty then. Once he mentions that he's into puppet shows, she decides to come up with an elaborate plan to win him over by creating the best puppet show ever, which, hey, I guess that works. Dipper is annoyed by this though, as he needs help, and slowly descends into a sort of madness, becoming extremely sleep-deprived and mentally frustrated. Eventually, Bill Cipher shows up yet again.
No hard feelings. I've been keeping an
Eye on you.
since then.
Telling Dipper that he can reveal the password if he does a little favor in return. Dipper refuses, of course, and the next morning voices his concerns to Mabel, explaining that he really does need her help right away. Mabel agrees, until she realizes that she must improve her puppet show in order to impress her man. Dipper is, again, extremely upset by this, and that night gets a notification on the computer that says there have been too many password attempts, and that he has one more shot to open it before it deletes all information within the computer. Dipper, wigging out and scared, is approached by Bill yet again. Bill says that he will give Dipper the password if he allows Bill to use one of the puppets. Dipper agrees, since he's mad at Mabel anyways, with him assuming that Bill will choose one of the puppets Mabel had been working on. The tables are turned though. Bill then shoves Dipper's soul out of his body and possesses him, making Dipper his puppet. Once Bill gains possession of Dipper's body, he begins to smash the computer. He reveals that he wanted to get rid of Dipper, as he was close to uncovering major information that could have destroyed his big plans. Destroying his journal is another important part of getting rid of any information that he may uncover, and Bill quickly learns that Mabel used Dipper's journal as a prop in her play, since she could hear Bill, as Dipper, ask out loud where it was.
I'm gonna drink it like a person.
That night at the play, Dipper realizes that the only way to warn Mabel of Bill's plan is to possess an object himself, since she can't see him as he is just a spirit, and so becomes his sock puppet self. Once he is able to warn her, Mabel tries her best to retrieve the book, but is faced with the ultimate predicament: save Dipper and his life, or impress the boy of her dreams. Just kidding, obviously Mabel chooses Dipper, no question. Mabel also realizes that since Bill is inside Dipper's body, he has the same weaknesses as him. She then proceeds to tickle him and explain that Dipper has been awake for several days now, and is bound to pass out any minute. As if commanding his body, he then collapses onto the floor. Bill is kicked out of Dipper's body, allowing Dipper to repossess his original meat vessel. Bill warns the two that this isn't the last that they've seen of him, while possessing a sock puppet. Mabel then uses the fireworks that were left for the end of the show to blow up the puppet that he was possessing. While the episode ends with the twins' content, it ends with Mabel failing relationship-wise, yet again.
I'm sorry. It looks funny when you're mad.
The episode Society of the Blind Eye begins with Dipper and Mabel realizing that on their smashed-up computer, it reads McGucket's Labs, likely alluding to Old Man McGucket. McGucket is a reoccurring character within Gravity Falls, and is seen as a delusional hillbilly man. He's been in a few episodes before this, but just trust me, he wasn't exactly important until now. Dipper is convinced that McGucket is most likely the writer of the journals, and so heads out with Mabel to confront him, grabbing Wendy and Seuss as well. Once there, McGucket denies knowing anything, and even explains to them that he actually has no memory of the past. Dipper flips through the journal to search for some clues, and is bewildered as he lands on the Blind Eye Society page. He becomes convinced that somehow McGucket had found out something rather important, and that he must have had his memory wiped clean. The group heads to the town's museum, which is apparently the source of McGucket's first memories. Once there, they find a secret entrance, and find cult members erasing memories from another town resident, Old Lady Susan, with her memory appearing to be sucked up into a tube. The gang quickly realizes that the cult apparently has been erasing everybody's memories the moment that they encounter something paranormal.
I'll ham-bone a message if there's trouble.
And once the cult is in sight, they begin searching for McGucket's hidden memories. As things unfold, McGucket retrieves his own memory tube while the rest of the gang get found out by the cult members. The leader reveals himself and explains that the townspeople of Gravity Falls started getting weird and existential whenever they realized how much of the paranormal existed. So they took it upon themselves to rid the townspeople of such worry by wiping their memories. In their eyes, it's better to be blissfully unaware than question your own existence and the world's mysteries. They then try to use the machine on the children, but Old Man McGucket comes to the rescue and shields them with his already blank mind. The roles are reversed, and the gang are able to erase the cult members' memories of ever being a part of the Blind Eye Society in the first place. They plug McGucket's memories into a TV and discover that McGucket used to be a genius scientist. He was also the original leader/creator of the Blind Eye Society and created the mind-wiping machine himself. A while ago, he was asked by the writer of the journals to help them with a project that was supposed to greatly help mankind. After something went wrong, he abandoned the project and erased his memories due to the trauma of the situation. McGucket slowly kept erasing his memories whenever something bad happened in his life, never actually being able to face any consequences to his actions. Dipper, slightly disappointed that McGucket wasn't the writer of the journals, asks McGucket if he remembers the writer of the journals, but apparently the memories are too fresh, so it may take him quite some time to remember. The episode ends with us seeing that Grunkle Stan is still working on his weird project in the basement. Here's a big one. The episode, Not What He Seems. Stan is finishing up on a machine and appears to be using toxic chemicals to do so. The next day, Stan attempts to tell the children about his secret, but before he can, he gets tackled by the secret agents that were investigating Gravity Falls previously during the zombie apocalypse episode. The agents explain to the children that Stan is the suspect of stealing hazardous chemicals.
Ground team, move, move, move! Break down the door!
Or maybe not.
And that for now, they're going to have to send them to child services. Dipper and Mabel, obviously distraught, attempt to clear Stan's name, until they realize that he is in fact the person who stole the chemicals. The twins decide to go down to the vending machine after finding that Stan not only has several fake IDs, but also was said to be dead in a certain news article. Once inside the lab, they find the journals and the machine. Apparently, if the machine malfunctions and doesn't work, it could cause the end of the universe. All of that power laying under some crummy tourist attraction. Wow. Dipper, enraged that Stan has been lying to them this entire time, figures out how to override the machine and shut it down.
Come on, Stan, you gotta think of a way out of this. Think!
Stan, who easily escaped from the detectives, this probably isn't his first rodeo, makes his way down to the lab and begs them not to override it. Mabel, being the one who's closest / has access to the override button, decides after much debate to trust Stan. The machine activates, and after nearly destroying everything, a six-fingered man that looks just like Stan walks out of the portal. Okay, epic family reunion moment. The episode ends with Stan and his twin brothers swinging together as children.
I love this show.
Now we have a tale of two Stans, which is a big old prequel episode. Growing up, Stanford Pines and Stanley Pines were twin brothers. Stanford Pines was the writer of the journals, while Stanley Pines was his pretty normal brother. The two were distant for a while as Stanford had a passion for school and ditched Stanley's wishes to sail the world together. After having a special interest in the paranormal, Stanford moved to Gravity Falls, as of course, that's where he found the most paranormal activity.
Meanwhile, your old Uncle Stan was doing great.
He began research and declared that the paranormal must be coming from a different dimension. He then set out to create his machine that would allow him to enter this otherworldly place. Stanford then asked McGucket to help him, because he was a past friend and colleague from college. But once McGucket got sucked into the machine, and thankfully pulled out, he apparently was never the same. He would also repeat a strange phrase: when gravity falls and earth becomes sky, fear the beast with just one eye. He later quit, saying their mission was too dangerous. Fair enough. Not knowing what else to do or who else to trust, Stanford asked Stanley to move to Gravity Falls in order to help him with his research.
Just give me a few more days, Rico. I'll pay your goons back, I swear.
The two got into a fight almost immediately, which resulted in Stanley pushing Stanford into the portal.
Ah, come on! Stanford!
Everyone assumed that Stanley was Stanford, so he faked his own death and took over his brother's identity in order to continue living in Gravity Falls without anybody raising any questions. He also turned the house into the Mystery House, because everyone knew that Stanford was there to research the paranormal and trusted his expertise in the matters. Stan said every night he would go to the basement and try to reactivate the portal in order to bring Stanford back, but was unsuccessful until now. Dipper forgives Stan as he realizes he was just trying to save his brother together, probably thinking that he would do the same thing for Mabel in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, the government detectives overhear, but Ford, the real Stanford, who we'll call Ford from here on out, uses the memory wiping device and is able to send them away. Stan sends the twins to bed before Dipper is able to talk to Ford about the books, much to Dipper's dismay. However, the twins eavesdrop, as Ford tells Stan that he will be allowed to live in the shack until the twins go back after summer break. Stan agrees, but warns Ford that he better stay away from the kids, as he doesn't want any harm ever coming to them. Okay, Stan being a good family member, 2 of 2 today. He's on a roll. Meanwhile, Seuss calls Wendy and tells her all about the drama that's been going down. He's seen talking to her for several hours. Definitely a Seuss thing to do.
Shoot some ladder ships, Necronomiconopoly, Don't Wake Stall.
The episode The Last Mabelcorn begins with Bill Cipher telling Ford that he will soon have control over the real world. More telling, though, he refers to Ford as his old pal, indicating that they have history together. Bill reveals to Ford that he's been making deals with old friends for plans when he gets to Earth, and warns Ford that despite him destroying the portal he used to get himself back to Earth, Bill's ace in the hole is the last remnant of the rift, which, when unleashed, will act as a gateway for himself and all his cronies. After waking up from his nightmare, Ford rushes to warn his family of the impending dangers that are about to occur. Ford asks the twins if they know of or have met Bill, and listens to them tell the stories of what has happened the last 2 times they've encountered him. Ford then explains that while Bill seems to be growing in power, he may have a way to shield the Mystery Shack from any harm. He needs several magical items in order to shield, so he sends Mabel off to find some unicorn hair. Ford then takes Dipper down to his second basement, where he explains that if Mabel fails in finding the unicorn hair, then they must prepare to shield their minds from Bill. He explains to Dipper that Bill is an ancient entity that seems to be older than their galaxy. He comes from the Nightmare Realm, but isn't able to directly impact their universe because he has no physical body. The reason why Ford shut down their portal is because he didn't want Bill to be able to go through it. In the middle of the night, Dipper put a mind-reading device on Ford and found that he used to be friends with Bill.
I'll erase you right out of Ford's head!
It's me, Dipper. It's your uncle.
After being questioned about it, Ford reveals that he was indeed once friends with Bill, but only because he was lied to about his true intentions. Bill struck a deal with Ford, saying that he would help Ford finish his portal if he could have full access to Ford's mind. Ford agreed, but after McGucket was sucked into the portal, he realized that Bill was evil. Ford, asking Bill about it, found that Bill only wanted to use the portal to teleport from the Nightmare Realm to Earth, to show Earth how to party with all his demon friends. After this, Ford shut down the portal, but Bill claimed that it was already too late. Again, that cosmic snow globe with the rift inside is the key to the chaos. Mabel then shows up with all the magical ingredients, and the Mystery Shack is presumably safe. Bill is seen at the end of the episode watching everything unfold from the Nightmare Realm, as he searches for someone outside of the Mystery Shack to take control of.
Sleep now.
This episode is the beginning of the end, titled Dipper and Mabel versus the Future. It begins with the Rift Globe's glass being slightly cracked open. Ford is obviously concerned. As if the glass is shattered, Bill has a passage to reality, and it'll lead to the end of the world. And so, Ford grabs Dipper, and the two go off to find an alien adhesive to patch the thing up. They go off to a UFO crash site, where Ford reveals that the abnormal effects of Gravity Falls were either caused by the UFO crashing, or the UFO crashing was due to the abnormality of Gravity Falls. Crazy. Meanwhile, Mabel is trying to plan her and Dipper's 13th birthday party, but nobody can go.
So neither of you are gonna be at my birthday party?
Oh, and she also finds out that high school actually sucks, and that growing up is just unfortunate in general. Big shocker. We've all been there, Mabel. We've all been there. She does make peace with the idea by realizing that Dipper is her twin, and that the two will always have each other.
Oh yeah? You think you can scare me?
Until she overhears Dipper agree to stay in Gravity Falls to be Ford's apprentice throughout the school year. When Dipper returns, Mabel is extremely distraught. She goes outside and is greeted by Blendon. He talks to Mabel and explains that he'd be able to make a time bubble for her and make her summer last forever if she gets the gadget that is in Dipper and Ford's possession. Mabel is unaware of the importance of the object and gladly hands it over, as she doesn't want to leave the summer behind, and more importantly, certainly doesn't want to leave Dipper Dipper behind. Once the gadget is in his hands, he smashes it onto the ground and reveals himself as Bill. Dun dun dun! Stan and Dipper run out and realize what has occurred, leading to what Ford has been calling Weirdmageddon. Time for the finale. This is Weirdmageddon, Part 1. The episode begins with Mabel being encased in a pink bubble locked with chains. Bill then gains a real form, as he is finally fully released into the world. Blynden Blandon, finally coming back to his senses, freaks out as he realizes Bill took control over his body, and he runs away while alerting the time police. Bill, now sentient and in the flesh, is able to call his other friends from the Nightmare Realm into Gravity Falls. He proclaims to the town people that he will be their new ruler, and even goes as far as to melt a statue of Nathaniel Northwest, who all the townspeople know as their founder. Obviously, the townspeople are extremely confused and distraught as Bill turns their world upside down and inside out, literally. You know things have gone bad when even the intro changes. Ford tells Dipper that the only logical way for them to defeat Bill is to shoot him back into the rift before the whole world is engulfed in his chaos. He presents Dipper with a gun device that will be able to do this, but, unsurprisingly, they find that it's almost impossible to hit him with it. Bill ends up capturing Ford and turning him into a gold back scratcher, as one does. But before this, Ford gives all 3 books to Dipper and tells him that there may be another way to defeat Bill.
Do it! Bill!
However, Bill, seeing that Dipper has the books, burns them directly in front of him before he has a chance to find out any hidden answers.
But wait. Somebody has copies.
Yikes. Things are looking grim. 3 days later, Dipper finally finds Wendy. Or maybe she found him? He was caught in one of her post-apocalyptic traps. While talking to each other, Dipper mourns his loss of Mabel as he hasn't been able to find or reach her. In response, Wendy does what she does best and gives him a 5-star pep talk when suddenly they see Mabel's floating bubble. Wendy and Dipper head to an abandoned automart to steal a car in order to drive to Mabel's bubble, but are quickly reprimanded by Gideon's little minions. Yep, he's out of prison, folks. Justice has failed. Gideon explains that Bill put him in charge of watching over Mabel's bubble, even giving him the key to her heart. Or maybe her shooting star, I guess? Not the smartest idea to blab, Gideon, but we get that you're excited.
Get back! Get back, or I will drop kick him, I swear!
The two are successful in stealing a car, but then are faced with an epic chase, complete with weird-ass bubbles. And they find Seuss. In the end, though, the 3 are surrounded, but Dipper ends up persuading Gideon to give them the key, telling him that he might potentially actually have a chance with Mabel if he tries being an actual good person. Gideon agrees and rides off to confront Bill with his prison buddies, after making sure Dipper will tell Mabel that Gideon is the one who rescued her in the end. The episode ends with Dipper, Wendy, and Seuss mysteriously walking into Mabel's bubble. This episode begins with Bill realizing that there is some sort of weird barrier trapping his chaos inside of the town limits of Gravity Falls. Hope his friends don't have concussions or something. Meanwhile, Seuss, Wendy, and Dipper all make their way into Mabel's bubble prison and find a land made up of every wish Mabel could ever possibly make. Nice prison, I guess. They find her sleeping peacefully at the top of her tower, and when they mention rescuing her from the bubble, she objects, saying that she is perfectly happy in her safe world where she is the ruler and everything is amazing. At first, Seuss and Wendy argue with her, but they both succumb to the magic bubble's persuasion quickly.
Seuss, mijo, I have returned.
Holy, whoa. Dad?
Dipper's the only one
Damn,
able
that's
to
fucked
resist
up.
the temptations that the bubble offers. Later, in Mabel Land, Dipper is approached by Wendy, who tells him how smart he is, and that if he were older, they would date. She then tempts him to
Grooming. That is a phrase of a groomer, okay, Wendy? That's not okay. Yeah, if you was a little bit older, I'd date you. What?
wish for that exact thing to happen, which is exactly when Dipper realizes that she's a fake. Once realization hits, the Wendy clone creepily turns into Bugs, and Dipper is warned that he is always being watched. He then audibly says that he wants to go back to reality. Mabel made one extremely important rule that must be followed within Mabelland, and that is for nobody to ever mention reality. Dipper begs Mabel not to kick him out of the bubble, and she agrees to have the matter settled in court, where fantasy versus reality will be discussed. The court case rules that if Dipper wins, Mabel will come back to reality with him. But if Mabel wins, then Dipper will be banished forever. It begins with a strong fantasy lead, saying that if Mabel were to stay in Mabelland, then nothing bad would ever come to her. Dipper counters this, though, by saying Mabel doesn't actually want to stay in Mabelland. She just doesn't want to be alone. He assures Mabel that growing up will be hard, but it will be made slightly less hard because she'll be going through it with people who love and care about her deeply, including her friends and family. He also swears that he will give up his apprenticeship opportunity in order to grow up with Mabel. Dipper and Mabel hug, which triggers the release of the hold Mabel had on the bubble. Everything gets all scary and bug-infested. Ugh. But ultimately, Mabel uses a needle to pop her bubble prison. Meanwhile, in reality once again, they decide to take shelter in the Mystery Shack, where they quickly find other refugees, including Stan. Continuing on with part 3 and 4 of Weirdmageddon, we have Dipper and Mabel reuniting with everybody from the Mystery Shack. Once there, the kids learn that the magical spell that they had casted with Ford involving the unicorn stuff actually worked. No nightmare entities or weirdness can harm them inside of the shack.
We have several injuries. Ooh, ow! Ah, my liver, girl!
At first, everyone was somewhat okay with staying in the Mystery Shack until the foreseeable future, until they saw on TV that all of their friends and family had been trapped in agony, engulfed by stone, and made into a throne for Bill. They then get the wild idea that since the Mystery Shack is invincible to weirdness, then it might be able to fight against Bill as well. In order to do this, they have to take the Mystery Shack to him. But how exactly would they do so? Don't worry, you'll see. Meanwhile, Bill is trying to figure out how to leave the bubble that Gravity Falls has trapped him in order for him to take over the entire world and then the galaxy. After Bill unfreezes Ford to try and see if he knows what's causing him to be trapped, Ford blabs and refuses Bill entry into his mind to steal the info. Bill needs a handshake to enter a mind. Bill then chains him up and attempts to torture it out of him. Cut back to the shack, and as we all predicted would happen back in episode 1 of the series, it's being turned into a giant Power Rangers-ish mech. We all did think that had happened, right? Well, we can all agree that it's awesome, right? The mech is brought right up to Bill's pyramid, and after the shack beats all of Bill's friends, they've got to deal with the Golden Dorito Man himself, but not before he pledges to Ford to torture the kids in order to pry the info to free himself out of him, and then freezes Ford again. While Bill deals with the shack, the people within secretly fly out and into the pyramid to rescue Ford and the townsfolk, and find the only person who isn't frozen is Gideon, who's forced to dance for all eternity. Ugh, that's gotta be rough on the legs. Anywho, everyone is freed, and Ford hopes to figure out the secret way to defeat Bill. He creates a circle full of prophesized symbols, all of which represent members of the cast of the show. If you paid attention to the couple of seconds where Bill appears at the end of the intro of the show, this thing should be familiar to you. Everyone lines up on their corresponding symbol, except for Stan, who wants the thank you from Ford for spending all of those years trying to save him that he never got. The chain breaks, and Bill shows up to kill any semblance of hope the group had. Once there, Bill turns all of their friends into banners and proceeds to threaten Stan and Ford with the lives of their grandchildren. Mabel cleverly sprays spray paint into Bill's one eye, which takes a while to regenerate. Of course, she claims she knew that would hurt him because she's done it to herself like a million times. They yell at their grunkle to get out of there and save themselves, as they feel they've got a chance to defeat Bill since they already have several times in the past. After Bill turns into this ungodly sight, the kids are able to evade him for only a short period of time, until they are caught and taken back to be flat out murdered in front of their grunkles. Ford gives himself up to Bill in order to save the kids, allowing Bill to enter his mind. Or at least that's what it seems, as it's actually Grunkle Stan's mind that Bill went into. Stan and Ford switched clothes while Bill was chasing the kids, and now that Bill is trapped in Stan's mind, Ford uses the memory erasing gun to wipe Bill from existence, at the cost of Stan's brain as well. It works! Bill is defeated, and everything starts to go back to normal. normal, except for Stan, who's a blank slate, not even remembering who his own family is. Eventually, though, Stan remembers his life thanks to Mabel's scrapbook.
What this is, or who you are, or... God, quit it, Waddles! I'm trying to remember my life story!
And the entirety of Gravity Falls goes back to normal, with just a touch of extra weirdness thrown in for fun. Dipper and Mabel have their 13th birthday party, Stan and Ford decide to finally fulfill their childhood dream and set out on the ocean to conquer the anomaly, and Seuss becomes the new owner of the Mystery Shack. On their last day, Dipper and Mabel head off to the bus station and say bye to their friends. Dipper and Wendy switch hats, with Wendy giving Dipper a letter to read the next time he misses the place, and Mabel taking home Waddles. Everyone grows and changes for the better, and Dipper opens the letter to see the words, "See you next summer," written down, alongside the signatures of all the friends he and
We never got to see them again.
Mabel made that summer. The bus rides home as the show finally comes to a close. However, at the very end of the credits, we can see Bill still has some weird stone form of himself out there, waiting for someone to shake his hellbound hand in the wilderness. Creepy. And that is Gravity Falls. Hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on our next
W Gravity Falls.